Hello, Kazat. Last time we talked about the advantage of Playwright, how it is superior to Selenium or Cypress or Projector, all those automation tools, right? Now, today I want to talk to you about why the companies wouldn't switch to the Playwright now, why they are still waiting, why they are still so hesitate of switching the automation tool from Selenium or Cypress to the Playwright. Can we talk about it today?
Oh yeah, I mean, it's not only why they wouldn't switch. Many companies, they don't even know probably Playwright exists and its advantages. I think, first of all, it's an educational curve. They need to be aware of this product and its benefit. Second, there could be political reasons, technical reasons, personal reasons, reasons to change. There's so many things. So yeah, let's talk about challenges of transitioning from Selenium to Playwright and how you can make it smoother.
Absolutely, yeah. So in my opinion, since Playwright is relatively new, probably the existing QAs or stats, they're probably not familiar with this tool and they might think that it's kind of challenging for them to learn, even though it's in reality, it's much more easier than Selenium or Cypress. And also, lots of people, especially people in IT, they also have fear for the new technology. Do you agree?
I think fear of new change or new technology exists in all business domains.
Absolutely, yeah. That might be one of the main reasons they are refusing to switch.
You kind of remind me a couple of things. I'm not sure if you know Blockbusters.
Yes. The company that went bankrupt because of Netflix.
Yeah, when I came to US, it was a really fun thing to do. In the weekend, I'll put my kids in the car. I'll drive to Blockbusters and all the DVD rentals were there, right? So we would look for Finding Nemo's. Finding Nemo, some cool stuff, Toy Stories. My kids were very happy. And I rented some DVDs from there. But the problem was I was really poor. I had to work like 80 hours a week. So I rented for like, I don't know, $3, $4 per week. But the problem is I always forgot to return or I didn't have to return on time. So I have to pay late fee.
And the penalty is more expensive, right?
Yeah, you end up paying more on the late fee than the rent fee itself. And I didn't know back then it was part of the business model of Blockbusters. And when Netflix was taking off and the board members of Blockbusters, they were considering whether to buy Netflix, acquire Netflix, or starting a streaming service. And their analogy was, listen, like we're making $4 billion a year on late fees.
On the penalties.
Yeah, if we do online streaming, there's no late fee on online streaming because you're not renting.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you just watch, you just stream. So they didn't want to give up that $4 billion. Blockbuster was a customer punishment business. At the same time, most of their profit was coming from late fees, right?
Yes.
So I think that was the reason they resisted change.
They resisted the change.
Now, yeah, they resisted change. They could have invested on online streamings and could be on the new Netflix today, or they could acquire Netflix. They didn't do it. They went bankrupt. Now I feel like Google is in similar place today. So now after using Perplexity for a few months, going back to Google, search something, I feel like it's insult to myself. Because I ask a question, it doesn't give me the freaking answer. I have to go through all this link, look for my answer. Or I go to Perplexity, I ask a question. It goes to all the internet, just find the best answers, articles, summarize all of them, give me the answers, give me the source of those answers, right? So now, like, there's no need for Google. Google is also in the dilemma. Why? Yes. Because if Google changed their business model, like majority of Google's revenue is coming from ads business. Google wants you to click 18,000 links. Google wants to provide all this 18,000 page of links.
Yeah, because of the sponsorships. Yes.
Yeah, because people are paying for popping up on Google. So now, either they have to kill their business model to go buy Perplexity or coming up with something like Perplexity. But if they come up with something like Perplexity, their main revenue model is not going to work out. So I think that's going to be the challenge. But however, there's a possibility that Google might become the new Blockbuster because that's exactly what happened to Blockbusters, right?
Yeah, that's possible.
I feel like whether you're business or you're professional, people resist to change because there's personal interest or their financial interest. But let's say if somebody already built their automation framework in Selenium, they built their competency around Selenium.
Yes.
The reason they got hired, the reason they're getting paid $420,000 is Selenium, Java, or any other programming language. Now, all of a sudden, you're saying there's a better tool called Playwright. First of all, it's going to be faster. So now, if you get paid by hourly rate, the more the project it takes, the more money you're going to get paid. Sometimes lots of IT jobs are contract job, contract for 1 year, contract for 2 years. Once contract or project is ended, you're not going to get paid. So there's a self-interest to make it slower, to make it longer. If the execution on Selenium takes longer time, the guy is getting paid. The script generation on Selenium getting longer, the guy is getting more paid. So I think there's a financial and personal interest of person. And the second thing is the guy built his or her competency around Selenium. Now, all of a sudden, if you say there's a new tool, entire competency is not going to be relevant anymore.
Right.
So they will have to learn something new, whether they're motivated to learn, they want to learn, they don't want to learn, they have capability to learn. It's all question mark. I would say people are politically challenged when they want to move from one technology to newer emerging technology.
That makes sense.
And also there's a financial challenge as well.
So in that case, what do you think would be the better approach to adopt this new technology? Because the companies, they also do not want to left behind, right? For example, you just give the example of what happened to Blockbuster. They refused to change and they end up being bankrupt. And maybe Google is also in the similar situation right now. So what do you think would be the proper approach to adopt this new technology while not damaging the existing model that they have?
I think if it's all the lens that you look at, if my lens, I have glasses with me, right?
Yes.
This lens was red, printed on red. Now I have a lens, for example. If this lens was red, I will see the entire world red, right? If it's blue, I will see blue. I think it's what color of lens that you wear. If you're looking for challenge, if you're looking for the reason to not adopt new technology, you're going to find plenty of reason to not do it.
Right.
But I think one of the things people can do is focus on the benefit, long-term benefit.
Long-term benefit.
Long-term benefit. Because if you know that Playwright plus AI plus Python is really benefiting you and your company, creating more result, creating more financial return on investment,
yes,
you know in the long run, equipping yourself with newer emerging technology, always good for you. Because at some point in your career, if this tool becomes mainstream, you will already have years of experience and expertise using this tool. So for those people who are learning or moving to Selenium, from Selenium to Playwright, they have personal interest in it for the long term, for the long run. They need to understand that one. The second one is it's generally good for your company as well, good for your project, because when I came to US, I had a cousin teaching me how to drive. He has manual shift. It was like really hard to learn. I feel like Selenium is driving a car with the manual shift. I think it's cool. You can do some manual tricks, but automatic shift is much easier. It's much comfortable.
More faster.
Like it's just like comfortable. So why do you have to go through this pain of learning that or executing that Selenium, where if Playwright, you don't have to worry about waiting longer or shorter synchronization. You don't have those issues. You don't have to install web drivers.
Yes.
It's platform independent. It can execute test cases like 10 times faster. All this result, if you have easier, better, shorter way of achieving your task, why would you bother to spend 10 times more effort? Because you know that companies and the projects, they will always look for cheaper result. They will always look for return on investment, maximizing return on investment. That means that how can we achieve our objective cheaper, better, faster? If something is cheaper, better, faster, companies are going to move on it. The companies eventually will adopt that technology. So I think it's good for individuals also to understand that in the long run, it's going to be their own benefit and for the company's benefit. Once they understand that, I think it's easier for them to make a decision to say, let's experiment transitioning from Selenium to Playwright. Plus, you don't have to make it drastically. You don't have to ditch your entire framework and just move to Playwright.
Right.
You can do it gradually. You can do a pilot project. You can see if you can automate 100 test cases, some critical test cases to see what is the difference. Now you can personally compare apple to apple.
Sure.
How long it's going to take for Selenium test cases to generate, how long it's going to take for execute, how long it's going to take for the same thing for the Playwright. And once you see the result, it's going to be much easier to convince yourself and your team to transition from Selenium to Playwright.
Makes sense, yes. I think one of the main challenges that they will have is how to convert their Selenium automation framework into Playwright. because they already built this large scale of automation framework with Selenium and Java or other language. Now, if they want to switch the automation tool from Selenium to Playwright, first of all, they have to know Playwright. They need to know how Playwright works. They need to have domain knowledge in both Playwright and Selenium at the same time. Otherwise, the transitioning will be much more difficult. Would they have the knowledge of both Selenium and Playwright, those automation tools, then they still have to spend lots of time to analyze their existing framework and see how they can create the Playwright version of that framework at the same time. So transitioning, it requires you to have knowledge in both automation tools, and not only in Playwright but also in Selenium at the same time, right? But in the future, of course, after company fully transition to Playwright, that time you probably don't need to know Selenium. But during the transitioning period, you have to have both knowledge. How difficult do you think it would be for the teams to have both domain of knowledge to transition from Selenium to Playwright?
I think the difficult part comes from the mindset.
The mindset.
And the pride, literally. Imagine you build a tower, right?
Pride.
And I say, hey, this tower, you spend some effort, you have emotional connection, you remember all this like sleepless nights, right? Mm-hmm. And you wrote the sophisticated framework, you solve certain problems, all the algorithms,
You spend hours and hours on it.
So you will have emotional attachment to your old work.
Absolutely.
I think that pride might be
one of the blocker, right?
I think that's the biggest blocker. Uh-huh. When you take the emotion out of the context and just think about it from the benefit perspective, because business, economy, math has no religion, no ethnicity, no color, no emotion. Like at the end of the day, which tool is going to benefit your company and you better in the long run? Mm-hmm. If it's Playwright, I think taking out the most easiest way to make that decision. Let's assume that you already decided, right? Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm not very technical person like you, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
If Selenium is more difficult to use, set up, and it takes longer time to automate test cases, it takes longer time to run test cases, generate the result, I feel like it's like a manual shift. Like if you know how to drive manual shift, switching automatic shift, it's going to be much easier when you're driving, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
I feel like it's not about a technical part, it's your mindset. Once when it comes to technical part, I would say maybe in few weeks, less than I would say 40 hours of study, you're going to be competent on Playwright as well.
Absolutely.
And I remember probably maybe 12, 13 years ago, Agile Scrum was a big thing. Scrum Manifesto, all those things. Do you know Agile? Do you know Scrum? It was like, now sounds too funny to me. But that time, generally, lots of companies were waterfall.
Waterfall method.
And then it was a big part of the interview. Oh, do you know Agile? And then you have the answer to those. And they're like, how do you transition from waterfall to Agile? So when you want to transition from one methodology to another, I do think you need to understand both methodologies so you can kind of transition.
Yes.
Because at the same time, you have to deal with both. So same thing with the Playwright as well. Mm-hmm. You already know Selenium. You're really good at Selenium. Now, once you learn Playwright, then you can experiment this transition. I think it's going to take time for many companies to transition from, if they have a large regression suite with thousands of test cases, it's going to take time. Absolutely. But eventually it's going to pay up. But the good thing is, if you're working in a new project, right, you have 25 test cases automated already. It's much easier for you to transition. Yes. Like you don't have to even transition. You just literally have to build your framework on Playwright. But if you have a large suite, I think one thing is just literally convince your team, do an experiment, work on some pilot project, see the benefit, and calculate return on investment in 6 months, in 1 year, if the result is greater, because companies are going to save a lot of time on execution, test case generation. When I was working for Fannie Mae, for example, we had around 2,000 test cases that we have to execute for all the regression suite. And I would say maybe 20% of test cases will just fail for no reason. Environmental, synchronization. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Like, you just have to simply run 5 times, it will pass. It's such a waste of time. I think Playwright is much better handling those situations. So you don't have to...
far better.
You don't have to re-execute the existing test case that is failed for other reason than it's a bug or defect. So I think in the long run, it's going to pay off. So you just have to know both and work on both while maintaining your existing Selenium framework. Slowly you migrate to Playwright. start with pilots, start with critical test cases. Then at some point, I think it's going to become like just a routine task of converting your old test cases to new, right? So now I want to ask some questions. Let's say if there's a team, whether they're new project, existing project, how should they make decisions? How do we know Playwright is a better tool for a particular team or software development project versus Selenium? Like, how would you make that decision?
I'll make the decision based on like the complexity of the existing project and also the how user-friendly this new automation tool is, as well as what are the main benefits that the new automation tool gives me compared to the existing one. For example, when you look at the Playwright, the implicit, explicit weights issues that you deal with Selenium, you don't have to deal with it at all in the Playwright. And also scrolling and other type of time-consuming problems, you do not have it in Playwright, which you have a lot in Selenium. So that will already convince me to switch to the Playwright if I was the team lead, because there are just lots of advantages of Playwright, even though it's a relatively new tool compared to Selenium, but there are lots of advantages that would make me to switch from Selenium to Playwright. And of course, as you mentioned earlier, transitioning from one methodology to another is not easy, right? If you want to transition from waterfall to agile, you have to have both knowledge. And same applies to the Selenium to Playwright as well. So I would also consider to train my teams to learn Playwright as well at the same time. Since the QAs, they already been working on a Selenium project for a long period of time, it will be much more easier for them to transition to Playwright. Acquiring this Playwright automation skills will be like piece of cake for them, literally. And also after they acquire the knowledge of Playwright, next I would consider what other configurations that are needed to fully switch from Selenium to Playwright. When it comes to the Jenkins, it creates another problem because the configurations could be different on the Jenkins, right? So existing configuration of Selenium will not apply to the Playwright. So of course, I would still have to figure out how we can configure the Playwright on Jenkins, how to run the Playwright tests on the Jenkins for my smoke and regressions. And for the people that has been using Selenium in the past, mostly they've been using just the programming language like Java, Python, etc. If they were using Selenium with Java, that means they were using Maven. Which means they have been configuring Maven on their Jenkins. If you are switching to the Playwright, most ideal programming language for you would be either JavaScript or TypeScript. Even though Playwright is still supported with other programming languages, but it's much more easier with JavaScript and TypeScript. So in that case, yes, you will have to find a way to figure out how to set up the Node.js on the Jenkins. So there are different factors that you need to know in order to fully transition from Selenium to Playwright. First, you have to have all the knowledge from both domains, starting from UI testing, as well as CI/CD tools, all the configurations, all those factors I have to consider at first. And if any area that I am not too comfortable with, that probably blocks me from switching from Selenium to Playwright immediately. But of course, nowadays, if you have been using Selenium in the past couple years, fully learning Playwright and learning all those configurations will not be a problem for you at all. In the long run, yes, it's absolutely worth it, For example, in our Playwright training, we spend about 45 hours to transition people from Selenium to Playwright. That also includes the entire domain knowledge of Playwright, configurations, Jenkins, all of those are included. Think about it. 45 hours is more than enough for you to have all the knowledge of Playwright, all the configuration, Jenkins, everything. You will be able to do it with Playwright.
If I was a guy in the market, not me in the market, let's say in the tech market.
Yes.
If you were doing test automation for the past few years through Selenium and Java, I think this is going to be an opportunity to put JavaScript, TypeScript, and a new tool.
Yes.
I would say in the knowledge market, knowledge is asset. The more knowledge you have, the more tools you know, the more language you know, means that your ability to get jobs is going to be higher.
Yes.
And for the higher salary as well. I think this is something that people need to understand, that in the long run, not only this is going to benefit the companies or project, this is also going to benefit the employees as well, for those people who's transitioning from Selenium to Playwright. Yes. Now, with that being said, you were talking about it's going to take 40 plus hours for existing STATs or test automation engineers to transition. When I was working for those companies, we had lots of manual QAs.
Yes.
Amazing people. But they're constantly under pressure, they had to learn automation, and also you see if somebody's writing code, they're more cool or fancy at work. It's kind of, you can tell the difference. For those people who wants to kind of break into automation career from traditional manual QA career, still lots of people like that. Can they just directly start learning Playwright? How long is it going to take for them? How difficult is it going to be for them?
Yes, they could directly learn Playwright. But of course, before you learn Playwright, you also have to have some programming knowledge. Because at the end of the day, all those automation tools requires some sort of programming skill. For example, if you want to be a Selenium automation tester, if you want to use the Selenium for your web testing, you still have to know Java or Python or C#, those languages that are supported with Selenium. And as for the traditional QA who has never done any coding, but they do have testing experience, they know the basics of HTML, web structure, as well as the testing, right? If they want to transition from traditional QA to STAT, I think first they have to improve their programming skills. And that's why we also have put some freemium course on the YouTube that is good enough for you to give some programming skills, right? So yes, you have to have some programming skills. And once you have some programming skills, then you can start to learn some automation tools. If it's your first time learning automation tools, I would definitely recommend you to just go with the Playwright, because Playwright is much more user-friendlier than Selenium. The Selenium training, it would take a lot longer, lots of hours, but Playwright, it takes just half of that maybe, or maybe less. So you just need to have like certain programming skills. You don't have to be as good as the developer if you are already QA that want to transition to automation testing. So you acquire some programming skills. And then if you sign up for our Playwright training, for example, in that Playwright training, we also spend like 11 hours for the JavaScript part. We will cover the most essentials JavaScript topics that are needed for Playwright automation. And after that 11 hours, you are good to go with the automation classes, automation trainings. Then after that 11 hours, we will spend about 34 hours on the Playwright itself. When I say Playwright, it includes entire fundamentals, so Playwright, advanced techniques, so Playwright, and Jenkins integrations, plus project implementation. So the project that we use in our training to transition people from Selenium to Playwright is the SCP project. It's a finance-based project. You will also learn how to work on existing framework. We will give you a ready framework, Playwright BDD framework. One is built with JavaScript. The other one was built with TypeScript. You will work with both of them. By end of the course, you will be fully fluent in both programming language, JavaScript and TypeScript, and you will be able to use the Playwright with either one of them. And also, by the way, the framework that we give you, like you can also use it as a template framework, just in case if your company is planning to switch to a new automation tool, we can give you a template framework of BDD and Playwright, and you can use it to automate your own application as well. So within that 45 hours of training, you will be fully comfortable with JavaScript, TypeScript, and the Playwright at testers level.
So I just want to clarify one thing, right? For the existing QA with no automation experience,
Yes.
that they're interested in the transition to automation, that there's multiple options in the market. Java Selenium, which is like still large part of job descriptions
Yes.
in Indeed and Dice still, because it's existing framework. It's like EV is a huge thing at some point, right? But still internal combustion engines is the
Yes.
mainstream. It's going to take time
True.
for one technology to take over another technology. But for people working in technology, it's good for them to kind of know the emerging technology, learn with them, keep them up to date, right? Keep themselves up to date. But when we said, like for the beginning, when we said somebody with existing QA experience trying to learn automation from scratch as an existing QA engineer, I have options for Selenium.
Yes.
I have options for Playwright. Technical barrier to entry for Playwright is lower because it's much easier than Selenium, which is, it's not that difficult. So I would probably spend more effort to learn Selenium than the Playwright. So it means that Playwright is much easier option.
Yes.
Sometimes it's better for people because it's easier to learn, easier to implement. But the dilemma is this: still, large part of automation works still existing. It's Selenium or Java.
Yes,
so now,
that's because Selenium has the largest community.
So if you have a really good friend who's a manual tester, and he said, "Hey, Muhtar, I don't really have a lot of time to learn Selenium and Playwright at the same time. I want to learn automation. What is best option for me at this point?" What would you tell them?
That's a difficult question, honestly. If you are someone who already have QA experience, like someone who's great soft skills and someone who knows Agile, Scrum, all those methodology and everything, then as you mentioned, Playwright, it has less technical difficulties in terms of barrier to entry, right? But the jobs of the Playwright is not as much as Selenium is. That's another factor. And if the company that you are working at, if they really planning to switch to the Playwright, of course, I would definitely suggest you to go with Playwright.
Okay.
However, if your company is still using Selenium, still using some existing automation tools, etc., then I would probably suggest you to stick with the Selenium for now. Learn the Selenium first. And then after learning Selenium, you should still improve your skill, upskill yourself, and learn the Playwright. That would be my advice. Because I cannot just directly tell you, do not learn Selenium, just go with Playwright. Because now it's all about supply and demand, right? There's still more demand for Selenium in the market compared to Playwright, because lots of companies, they are still using the old automation tools.
Yeah, I think it's like a EV versus combustion engine. EV was cool, it was hot, everybody wants to get EV, but still internal combustion engine was the mainstream.
Right.
I do think that if it's a brand new project, probably you would recommend Playwright, because it's a new project, you just have to start from something much easier, much more effective. But there's more job in Selenium still.
True.
So if your company is trying to transition, you're recommending to learn Playwright as well. But if not, there's a more job opportunity in terms of Selenium in the market.
Yes.
Okay.
That's true.
Let's say we have a software development team and assume there's a couple thousand test cases in regression, 85% automation coverage. All those test cases are automated based on Selenium and Java. And if they decide to transition from Selenium to Playwright, what would be the most efficient roadmap for them? What would you suggest?
The most efficient roadmap. Well, the most efficient roadmap would be first identify the exact tools that they will be using. For example, if they decide to use the Playwright with Java, that means they still need to use Maven as a build tool, Java as their programming language, right? And also if they decide to use it with the native language of Playwright, such as JavaScript, then of course need to create the template framework ready. Then it's going to be much more easier to transition from Selenium to Playwright. So I would first identify the exact tools that I will be sticking to. I would also learn those tools, what could be the possible advantages of the new tools. For example, if the company that I am working in right now, if it was using Java, I probably first consider using Playwright with Java. But at the same time, I would also do the research on whether other programming language would make it much more easier for me to transition. If you look at the JavaScript, since it's the native language of Playwright, all the Playwright packages, everything, all the libraries of Playwright are built on JavaScript. So it makes it much more easier to do the automation with the JavaScript. And plus JavaScript is, compared to Java, it's a piece of cake, right? You can spend like less than 1 week to acquire your JavaScript knowledge if you have Java knowledge. Then yes, of course, that probably would make me to go with JavaScript instead of Java. And then I would identify what build tools should I use. For example, if I go with JavaScript, I would have to stick to Node.js. So compared to Maven, what advantage Node.js has, I would have to look into it as well. And once I identify those tools, then I would start to build the template framework, because I cannot directly transfer all those thousands of test cases right away into the Playwright test cases, right? Because they are written in Selenium. So I would first create a template framework and maybe try to transfer 10% or 5% of the automation test case, automation suites first to the template framework, see what advantages this template framework, this new style of framework can give me compared to the old one, right? And once I make sure that this new template, the new framework, it can satisfy my needs and it can bring me much more benefits compared to the old one, then I would like heavily transfer other automations into the new framework. That would be my approach first of all.
So basically you want to figure out what programming language you're going to use.
Yeah.
And you would
what programming language and what build tools, etc.
Yeah, you would prefer JavaScript. And then you will identify the tools. Based on that, you want to start a template project, which is framework.
Template framework, yes.
And then you want to kind of have a proof of concept with a pilot projects. Once you see the result, then you're going to start transferring or migrating from.
Yes, because you have to have the template frameworks in order to be able to actually compare the difference between those two automation tools for your project. So for example, in my existing project, I will run those 100 test cases and see how long the execution is and how smooth the execution is. And then I will also use the new template framework to do the same. You run all those 100 test cases to see what are the main advantages the new one has. Because if the new one does not have much advantages compared to the old one, then there's no point for me to switch from old one to the new one.
Can you really tell from 100 test cases the difference?
You could absolutely. The global configuration, how easy was it to configure it for me in the new framework compared to the old one? Because just when you compare the global configuration in the Selenium, you need lots of new tools to achieve some sort of global configurations. For the parallel testing, for example, you need to install grid. So Selenium has lots of disadvantages on the global configuration part. And Playwright will definitely show me all those global configurations, how easier, how user-friendly it is. So 100 test case, running them on the automation framework is more than enough.
So since I don't write code anymore,
Yes.
I'm just curious, when you say transition, can I copy paste code from Selenium to Playwright? There's like,
No,
or at
you
least
cannot
put it on
actually.
ChatGPT is like, hey, this is the test case. I don't know, like a couple hundred lines of code. And then I paste it on ChatGPT, said, I'm using Playwright, I'm using JavaScript. Can you translate this code to JavaScript from Java? Can I do that, or I'll have to rewrite the code from scratch? How does it work? Tell me, like, I'm lazy, I'm dumb,
Sure.
make it easy for me.
Sure. First of all, yes, you could definitely utilize AI because nowadays with the help of AI, translating one programming language to another is much more easier. And second of all, yes, you still have to have the knowledge of the other programming language. Otherwise, when the AI gives you some spaghetti codes, you do not know how to fix it. And if there's a bug in the code, you probably will not know how to fix it. So if you are trying to transition from Java to JavaScript, yes, you have to have JavaScript knowledge first. And the good thing is those languages, whichever language that you were using with Selenium, most of them are still supported in Playwright. And when you try to transition from other language that are supported with Playwright, it gets even more simpler. JavaScript compared to Java, it is much more simpler. And the syntaxes are pretty much similar as well. Okay, so I would spend like maybe maximum 10 hours just to learn JavaScript syntaxes, and then afterwards I could translate that Java codes into the JavaScript and put it into the new framework.
So I'm a little disappointed now because
Why?
I'll have to rewrite the code again.
Of course you have to.
No, I was thinking that if I can kind of automate the automation process.
Automate automation.
So I put a conversion tool, right? I built the automation conversion tool. It's going to take the code from Selenium,
Yes.
put it in the conversion, and
And
spit
give it
out
in
the
the
Playwright. So maybe 1,000 test cases can be done in a week.
You could achieve something similar with the custom GPT though.
Oh, really?
Like if you build a custom GPT and for the knowledge base, if you use your existing framework structure and example codes, and also give the example code of example output of how would you want the output to be generated. If you can build a custom GPT like that, every time when you put any Selenium test case, it can immediately convert it to the Playwright test case that is suitable for your own framework.
At least like 51%, right? Let's say. Obviously, 80% is better, but if I can kind of make 51% automated, still, I don't have to spend. I just don't want to write code from scratch. Is that bad for people? Is this AI tools making people like dumber? Because I feel like I'm getting lazy, right? As I'm relying on AI, specifically if you're a developer or if you that you used to have write code, solve problem, and now AI is doing everything for you. Now you're getting used to it. You're getting lazy. I feel like if you're elementary school kid and you don't have to learn math, if your teacher gives you like, hey, just use calculator. Can you compare the U.S. education system with India or China? How they learn math in elementary school? It's crazy. Like you and me, like we grew up in Chinese education system, you know? Whatever we learn in middle school, high school, like, I don't know, this is like...
The students in US, they're learning it in college.
I mean, if they're learning in college.
Oh yeah, if.
If they're learning in college, right? So I think it's give and take, but I hope people don't abuse them. I would say keep your coding skills sharp is also important.
Yes, you have to
Keep
your
it sharp,
coding skills
then be lazy is fine. But you have to be fit all the time, but being lazy once in a while is fine, I guess.
And also one part that I disagree with you is that it also depends on how you utilize the AI. For example, AI is making you more lazy in terms of coding, right? But for me, when I'm coding, AI is making me much more productive, and it also improving the quality of my codes because I do not directly take the suggestion of the AI right away. For example, I will utilize AI whenever I'm trying to look for alternative solution because my imagination could be very limited. The solution that I can come up with could be very limited, but there is always some better solutions out there. Okay, what can I do if I cannot find a better solution myself? Then I go to AI. AI can always give me some better solution, better improvements, and I can integrate it into my own codes. That's how it makes me much more productive, and that's how it can improve the quality of my codes at the same time.
I think we should do another podcast about how to migrate from Selenium to
Playwright. by utilizing AI.
By utilizing AI to like automate, I don't know, 51% of your work to make it easier.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think that's also another thing that we have to mention. You see, in our Playwright course, we do not just teach you JavaScript, Playwright, and Jenkins, we also teach you AI, Perplexity, Tab9. That's because we want you to be fully comfortable utilizing the Playwright in any programming language. If you can write the Playwright script with JavaScript or TypeScript, then you should be able to do it with for the Java and Python as well. And AI can definitely help you to achieve that. That's why in this training, like 45% is training is on AI. We do train 45% of this training program. We do train you on AI, like how to utilize a prompting tool, how to create various AI agents, and also how to debug the code with AI, document the code with AI, fix the errors with AI. So one of the AI agents that we create towards the end of program is Playwright with JavaScript. So basically what that agent does is when we give some manual task case, creates the automation script with JavaScript and Playwright. Of course, you can also customize that AI agent to give you the automation script with Java or Python. It's easier to configure. So once you have the knowledge of how to fully utilize the AI into automation, then of course transitioning from Playwright, from Selenium to Playwright, regardless of what language it is, will be much more easier for you because now you have this AI, the ultimate tool, also your best assistant in automation.
That sounds like making the barrier to transition much easier.
Yes.
Much cheaper. Yeah, that's great because before this technical know-how was very expensive.
Yes.
And it was not scalable because you need to have a senior developer, senior engineer that is demanding $250,000 at least with 18 weeks of vacation time, whatever, right? Now I think since AI knows the most of the stuff, learning how to prompt better and utilize AI tool,
yes,
it is going to make you as senior as somebody with 15 years experience.
Absolutely.
Maybe even better. I always give this example. Fastest running guy is Usain Bolt. When we are in the racetrack, in the car race though, because when we have the same vehicle, I don't think he has any advantage against me when we're racing in the car track. So this is a good time for people to learn more skills. Whether you're new, whether you're existing technical guy, learning new technology have never been easier like today. So another question that I have is, there are some web applications, they're still kind of old school. I remember some of the government projects, they were still using Internet Explorer and in terms of browser compatibility, and they just did not think of using newer technologies. So there are some legacy technologies, legacy web applications. When you move to Playwright, do you have issues with, like, for example, can you automate like Internet Explorer, which is your favorite browser? Does it work with the older technologies though?
No, the Playwright, it works with the best technologies, not the legacy technologies. Internet Explorer, we no longer use it anymore.
If you're working in a project that is still using some legacy technologies, that means that Playwright is not good choice for you.
I mean, there's a way to configure and play around, but still, it's not the best choice.
Because I remember one of the projects I was working, they were still using Windows XP.
Yes.
In 2015. And they had to pay Microsoft special maintenance fee. They had Windows XP was not available. That was in my high school. That was my favorite thing, Windows XP, It's like nostalgic, right? I love to use Windows XP because it's like my childhood. It was not available in the public. So our company had to pay Microsoft to maintain those Windows XPs. And you wouldn't have the newest technology, web application structure in that. So probably if you're working on those kind of projects, Playwright may not be a good choice for you.
Sure.
Any other things that can think of Playwright may not be good for their company?
I think that's just if it's a too old application that you are using, then Playwright is probably not the best choice for you. Other than that, I don't see any other reason why you cannot use Playwright. If anything Selenium or Cypress can do, Playwright can do better. So transitioning from old application, old tool to new tool, it could have lots of challenges. But if you know how to utilize AI, it could make it more easier for you to transition. So which means we should definitely need to talk about AI more and how we could utilize AI to help you transition from Selenium to Playwright.
Yeah. So I guess today we have covered lots of things about transitioning from Selenium to Playwright, pros and cons, mindset, return on investment, technical parts as well. you have covered a lot. I do think we need to have a follow-up podcast because I'm a lazy guy, right? I want to make sure that I want to let AI to do the job as much as possible, preferably majority of the part.
Absolutely.
So since you're already using AI a lot on software development productivity, whether it's quality assurance or test automation, or in general in coding, I think we should do another podcast about how to transition better, faster, cheaper with AI from Selenium to Playwright. Should we do that?
I think we should definitely do that, yes, because AI, it's a game changer. As long as you can identify whatever the repetitive task is, you could create custom AI agent that can do that repetitive task for you, which also makes it easier for you to transition from Selenium to Playwright because there are lots of repetitive tasks that you can identify. So yes, I do agree that you need to know how to utilize AI to transition from Selenium to Playwright.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we should definitely do another podcast to talk about AI.
Yeah. Thank you for all this experience sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Guys, thank you for watching. And our previous podcast was about Selenium versus Playwright. So we compared these two tools and some legacy tools. If you didn't check it out yet, we're going to leave the link in there so you can take a look. Now, today we have talked about how to transition from Selenium to Playwright.
Yes.
And in our next podcast, we're going to talk about how to utilize AI to transition.
Yes.
So thanks for watching. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.